Hello and welcome, folks. I am the Shaman, and today we'll be going over which cartoons share a universe. You may be shocked, maybe even appalled, but one thing's for certain, I have no social life, for I've invested all of this time in deciding what cartoons walk amongst each other. Now let's go over some ground rules before we begin. Rule 1, prove the same characters in the same world. Rule 2, no Toon City allowed, because that'd be just way too easy. Rule 3, no Cartoon Network Invaded series, since I'm pretty sure none of those episodes were canonical, or either would have had to take place at the end of each show's timeline, which, given the implications, would have just been depressing. Rule 4, no inclusion of the IDW comics. Super Secret Crisis War, while enjoyable and will have a review in its own video in the future, pretty much states that they're all in different universes, which is kinda going against what we're trying to prove here today, folks. And the fifth and most important rule of today, no reboots included. Because let's face it, none of us want to admit they exist. So without further ado, let's light this mother! First piece of evidence, Johnny Bravo meets the Blue Falcon in the episode Johnny Makeover. The Blue Falcon then goes on to meet Dexter from Dexter's Laboratory in the episode Dynamite. Dexter himself then appears in the city of Townsville in a blink and you miss it cameo in the episode of Forced Kin of the Powerpuff Girls. Now this is where the timeline of the universe splits, for in the past the demon wizard Aku had arisen and casted the only man who could have stopped him, Samurai Jack, into the future, where he sees a demolished Townsville in his own series premiere movie. Yet thanks to the Adult Swim continuation of the series, we do see that Samurai Jack finds his way back to the past, kills Aku, and sets the history of the Cartoon Network universe back on the right track. This puts us back into the normal city of Townsville, where we see the most memorable villain ever to grace cartoons, Mojo Jojo. And Mojo, being the notorious villain that he is, probably made it onto the news for a couple of his attacks on the city of Townsville, meaning one unimaginative child probably saw him and made a mimic imaginary friend out of him. This would put us in the same city as the Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends afterwards, in which we find that the Ed, Edd and Eddy crew meets up with the Imaginary Friends crew in the junkyard during the episode Eddie Monster, with an obvious Pikachu reference included. If we follow the Eds back home, not in the creepy way, then we'll find that they've concocted a new scam that begins and ends just as quickly with one call from Billy of Billy and Mandy, seeking help to remove his father's pants, phrasing, but is told to call the kids next door after Eddie hears that Billy has no cash to pay them with. Taking Eddie's advice to heart, Billy does just that, but mistakenly confuses kids next door for the Powerpuff Girls. To further expand on this universe, we see Time Squad abduct Dexter in the episode Substitute Orphan, in an attempt to replace a sick Otto before returning him to his own time, where the Justice Friends, Dial M for Monkey, and as well as the imaginary Kusi, or whatever his name is, exist and all make a small cameo once or twice in the Powerpuff Girls. And if we keep in mind that this is the same world as Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, we can easily explain away how the imaginary denizens like Kusi and Ed, Edd and Eddy's very own Jib can exist. The answer is quite simple, my fine faceless friends. Billy and Mandy magic. For the Grim Reaper has a physical personification and the underworld can interact with the surface with such ease, why can't your made-up cohort be given a solid body of their own? And let's not forget about the rest of Innsville's oddball cast of characters consisting of Evil Concarne, Underfist, and Fred Flintstone after being thawed out from an icy slumber and long after his run-in with George Jetson, his boy Elroy, daughter Judy, and wife Jane. As well as living as a neighbor to one of Johnny Bravo's ancestors, whose descendant would go on to meet Speed Buggy at the end of a one-night adventure with the Scooby-Doo gang. Whew, Fred really had it rough, didn't he? But did I miss anything? Are there any more connections you think can be made to further expand this already awesome universe? I may return one day just to do that. Also to include outside of Cartoon Network properties such as the Gorillas for their inclusion of Ace from the Gang Green Gang, or Panty and Stocking for their constant references to the Powerpuffs. But until then, Let me know what you thought of my research in the comments below, and I'll see you next time.